Hi everyone, in this video we're going to cut into a recording of a discussion of me speaking about YouTube and putting yourself out there as a creator and just some really important things I've noticed. So let's get into it. This has been a core point of discussion on the main channel. Recently I did a video about the most important thing I learned as a Blender YouTuber, and it comes at an important time actually in the history of YouTube. I speak about this subject quite a lot, I feel like a broken record, but if you know about like the Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, KSI, Lunchly drama, it's going to be really obscure for people that really aren't into that space. There's a big argument or conversation going on about how certain creators are just so focused on making money no matter the cost, like no matter the psychological cost, social cost, reputational cost, that kind of thing, and how it's kind of diluting the purpose of YouTube over time. Interestingly, I watched a video by Tommy Innit, which I think came after my video on the biggest thing I learned, and they put a big focus on something I also put a focus on, which was how the YouTube dashboard is designed in a way which induces anxiety for creators. And the messaging that YouTube puts out for creators is very much at odds with its desired culture. So for example, YouTube will tell people just to authentically be you, but then when you do authentically be you, they will give you every reason to feel bad about doing that because the statistics are not measuring metrics based on your satisfaction or how authentic you are. They're measuring how effective you are at obtaining clicks and getting watch retention and that kind of thing. And the issue there is that they use the interest of previous subscribers as an important metric for deciding whether to then recommend new content out to further audiences. And in one way they do this is via testing, which you can also often see during a performance graph where, like recently I put out a short and you'll see like an organic growth, and then all of a sudden there's one very specific point in time where you can tell something has been decided in the algorithm, and then it gets shot out to more people. So there's this inorganic jump, and then that goes on for a while, and then there's another pivot point, a very specific moment in time where you can tell that the system has decided that you either failed a test or some other criteria, and then it just goes poof, flatline again. So there are these very inorganic factors. Now that's only important if you really care about it. You know, one very valid way of doing YouTube is just not to look at the statistics at all. It kind of depends how much you're relying on the growth of YouTube. I always cared about it a fair bit, although I was always in two minds about it, where every now and again I would throw in something random just to shake things up, and then I'd go in and out of phases of caring about it. And really one conclusion I came to was that, hey, the best way to do things is just to create freely under your own intuition and never inhibit that. That's the artist side of you. And then whatever you produce, you can take that output as a reporter in a way, and then filter that through whatever processes you have for optimizing it into like a consumable format, like a video. Now, obviously in the process of getting set up and moved to this new house, the output for my YouTube channel had decreased a fair bit, starting to get into some like critical territory where like the amount of income made every month might not be enough for it to pass the payout threshold. It's like £60 or something, because it only gets like a couple of thousand or a few thousand views a day. But I had a pretty big revelation recently, and this is something that I want to drill into a lot of creators, where it's become apparent to me that in the goal of stability, like trying to make a stable job, really the one thing that people try to obtain as quickly as possible, often young people that want to come into doing YouTube and then prove to their parents that they can make a job out of it. Financial stability is often the main goal, even if it's shrouded behind more virtuous motives, you know, on the surface. I had a revelation recently where I just looked back at some data. I had a video that got like 1.7 million views. It was the LiDAR one. And the amount of money I made from that was just like £1,400 or something. Nearly 1,659. So keep that in mind. So 1.7 million views, which is quite difficult to do, for £1,659, which individually is a lot of money, but not really for that view count, and especially not if you're thinking about like a yearly wage. So 1.7 million views. And then I compared it to obviously something quite different, which is the release video for Afterglow. So the release video for Afterglow has only got 7,000 views, right? So 7,000, 1.7 million. But because that's a product, just something I spent a bit more time in, that has made near enough $10,000. Haven't converted that down into pounds yet. And that's just up until this point. So that's one push, the first and only main push for the product, around $10,000. Now, usually I don't like share financial information, like unless it's like a private or exclusive video, but so that pretty much covers like, you know, half a year for like a low yearly wage or something. 7,000 views. Obviously, you got to think about the amount of time and effort it took to get that product done and out there, but that was enjoyable time working on that. Now, the chances of getting a video of like 1.7 million views is extremely small because a lot of it is luck. I mean, you know, a lot of creators think, oh, they're the ones putting in the skill and that's the reason why they get the views. It's a survivorship bias. Most people that put out extremely high quality things don't get really any views. You'll just never hear about them. I don't think a lot of like high production quality creators are humble skeptical enough about the luck factor in it, but a lot of them have really slipped through the cracks, and they've taken advantage of the opportunity, right, in a lot of cases. But then again, the ones that didn't take advantage of the opportunity, you just don't hear of. So really, you see the survivors in a lot of environments like this. But that revelation made me think, okay, if what you're looking for is stability, aiming for maximum views is not the way to do it. Not at all. In fact, it's really one of the worst possible time investments. So I made a mental note, like I kind of pinned that revelation as a way of thinking, okay, you need to now consider everything you do going forward against this piece of information, because we finally have evidence for ourselves to say that, hey, focusing on higher view videos is pointless. Because really, think about it this way. You face a decision when making stuff like educational content. You can make something that's extremely educationally valuable, so something that people will be able to learn a lot from, and you can not compromise on that for the sake of keeping it pristine and authentic and just raw education. On kind of the flip side of that, you can dilute it and Mr. Beastify it, optimize it for watch retention, cut a lot of information out to like shorten the length of the video, and then stuff it with stuff just to keep people's attention. And it's diluting the educational value. And there are people that can do this really well in the middle, and you'll see that with a lot of educational channels that are like micro documentary series. And I think they do it very well. But again, what you'll find still is that even those people that do it well still struggle financially, which is why you see a lot of those channels really trying to push Patreon and other things, because they haven't quite clicked onto how to make their brand, their presence, something sustainable for the long term beyond just them. And maybe, you know, it's still a bit weird speaking about everything in terms of like sustainability and money and finance, but that's really where a lot of stuff comes from. You know, the reason you get to enjoy a lot of free content on YouTube is because money flows behind the scenes and allows people to create. That's just a reality of a capitalist world. Everyone would ideally like to be able to just create without thinking about that. I did a bit of a test on my main YouTube channel recently. If you've got notifications on for that channel, you might have noticed that I uploaded 3 videos in really quick succession, which I don't usually do. So there's 3 different types of videos just to see what the reaction would be like. One of them was a quick news video about Unreal Engine's new lighting system, just to gauge whether people were at all interested in news videos. One of them was a very quick video about EasyBPY, and I knew this one would not do well. Well, that's what I thought, because it's all about Python for Blender, and that never does well on the channel. And sure enough, these videos performed terribly. Like in the last, 10 out of 10 videos, the YouTube Studio shows you how well your new video is comparing against the previous 10. And everyone fears having it come the bottom of the list. So this news video, I thought maybe it will do well, maybe it won't, doesn't really matter. This Python one, I thought, I know for sure this one won't do well. But then the third one, I thought for sure this one will do better than the last 2. So this is revelation number 2, okay? It was 8+ Blender lighting tips to improve your renders. So this one is more generalized and more focused on what people typically click on: compilation videos, generalized tips. If I just said Blender tips rather than lighting tips, it probably would have gotten more clicks. But the point is, I was sure that this one would perform better than the EasyBPY video, and unsure about the Unreal one, but sure it'd do better than the Python. What actually happened was it was the worst performing video of, I think, the entire year so far, which is saying something, because I've had some pretty low performing videos this year. And that was weird, very weird. What it solidified to me is that, wait, this just like shatters my preconception for what the Blender audience would click on. And now stuff that I would want to talk about that seemed much more boring is outperforming stuff that's applicable to everyone, or to most people. Like, what's going on here? This is very weird. The question then struck my mind: why would I go out of the way now to optimize what I'm making for clicks when every video seems to be as badly performing as every other video? If we're now reaching a point where any type of video I make, like maybe the channel is so cooked now, like because I've been messing up the algorithm so much, that every video is now as equally shit in its recommendations, then what's the point of doing things in a less enjoyable way, like optimizing for views, if it's not going to make a difference? Now, I think this is probably just a one-off. And again, learning some things over the years to make things more presentable for people. I don't think it's a moment in time where I should throw out everything I've learned about making things presentable, but these are the 2 revelations. Going for maximum views does not help sustainability. Okay, well, maybe the audience that grows off of that can, but even that's subjective, because if you have a really high-performing video that's not relevant to your core product audience, and then people come along to that, they can disrupt the subscriber influence of future recommendations while also not becoming converting customers in the future because they're not a related audience. So no, high view counts don't contribute to stability unless your only income is the YouTube revenue stream, in which case, what are you doing? Because that's freaking awful. And if everything is becoming equally terrible, then what's the point of not making fun things? And what's the point of compromising on pure value? So in a way, when I look at that now, it's kind of given me this mental license, I suppose, this agency to decide that maybe it's time to do things that are a bit more fun rather than things that I think people will click on. And again, this is like the reporter side of me speaking. I'm already kind of working through the process of letting the artist do its own thing. It's this continuous training process of trying to like separate the people. In a way, it's kind of thrilling realizing that I might not need to be so optimized about YouTube anymore. I might not even need YouTube anymore. So okay, those are two revelations. The third one comes now after a social platform exercise. So again, speaking about the paradigm of the artist and the reporter, I did a test to see how could I, as a reporter, take the things I do as an artist and maximize that. So what I did was, as well as doing the A+ Blender lighting tips to improve your workflow video that was shockingly bad performing, I made a note on my Notion. I took every tip that I shared and I decided instead of doing the YouTube video, well, alongside the YouTube video, I'll take every tip and I'll do what I know works for other social platforms. I did images on Twitter for a couple of the best tips and I wrote about them, and I made a couple of shorts that went out on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube as well. Collectively, all of these much more bite-sized disseminations from the tip video outperformed the main YouTube video. It got me far more followers, got me more impressions, more likes. I think it made some sales as well for Afterglow and Hexscatter. The point is there that the YouTube video in this case was the one that contributed the least to me and the brand and the audience building and all of that. So revelation number 3 is that now YouTube may not be as important as I've always said it was. Now, again, this isn't to say that I'm going to move away from YouTube because I like it. What it's doing is it's now giving me the confidence to not care so much. Really, if there are any other like Blender creators watching this, these are the things I want you to take away. Number 1, high view counts don't contribute to stability, nowhere near as much as creating something or a product of value that people can actually use and get their hands on and integrate into their lifestyle. Number 2, doing things for fun isn't necessarily as bad as you think it is. And oftentimes we teach people what they want to see. But like how in product dev, a lot of the times a customer doesn't know exactly what they want or what they need until you give it to them and show them it. I think the same thing applies to videos. Oftentimes we try a new series and then they perform very poorly. It's because people don't know they like it yet. Eventually, if they do watch it, they'll enjoy it and they get used to the process. But we come away sometimes after putting out a fun video thinking, oh, that was a bad idea because no one watched it. Well, keep making it and eventually people will. And number 3 is that YouTube is not necessarily the biggest driver anymore. Another point about that is that I was very clever. I had this secret tip. I told some people about it early on in my YouTube channel, which was that Gumroad has the best mailing list system because it's free and it doesn't have any limits on customer emails, right? So give things away for free on Gumroad, people get signed up to the mailing list. I now have over 100,000 people on my mailing list, or 120 something thousand, I think it is, which means that now whenever I make a product, if I put it out on the mailing list, it is guaranteed to make sales. I don't even need to do a YouTube video about it to make some money from the product. Now, if we removed YouTube from the equation entirely, the mailing list, plus if I then did that social breakdown method, the reporter finding nice bite-sized chunks to talk about the work I've been doing, which is far easier than making a video and is also a better driver now than the YouTube videos, then what's the point in doing the YouTube videos? It's like the lowest contributor now. Only a tiny fraction of my audience, of my subscriber list on the main channel watch recent videos. The point is, it seems interesting that we've been building up all these followings and all these different methods over the years, but we've been tunnel visioning in on just one of them because it seemed like the most important, but it's not really. Maybe the importance has been overestimated. So really the point of this is that, I do experiments all the time. It may be confusing for people. I go through phases of doing the same kind of thing where I've done like a bundle of really tightly packed together videos on the main channel at like just random points in time, like 3 videos, 2 videos, 4 videos, and then back to the regular flow of like 1 video every week or every few weeks or something like that. And then randomly, I will just talk about completely random stuff happening in my life on Twitter, and then I'll have like one really banger tweet that gets like 1,000 likes or something. I know what gets good attention on the social platforms. They're actually much easier to do that with than YouTube. YouTube is like the least predictable one out of all of them. But that also now makes it the least useful one for getting stuff out there in the moment. Still possibly the best one for building an audience, but it depends. Not all of this advice is going to apply for someone that's just starting out. Obviously, it's more going to apply for people like me now who have some kind of pre-established audience. The fact of the matter is now I have learnt that slaving yourself for YouTube is not worth it by like any measurement whatsoever. It just doesn't make any sense now. It makes far more sense just to have fun with it and then play around with creative ways of disseminating what you've created onto different platforms, firing and forgetting. Then you can optimize your presentation for that, but just in a way that doesn't compromise the real creative side of you. Alongside all of this, I've spoken to some other creators and close friends, and I've been thinking about opening up some extra services, maybe consultation and creative work, visualization, etc. I'm going to do more work in Afterglow and other new products to build up a little bit of a portfolio before opening up those services. But yeah, it's it's just been interesting. I think I'm feeling less anxious about YouTube and stuff now. But that's kind of weird though. It's like the last 3 videos were so badly performing that they've made me feel good about YouTube. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's a coping mechanism. I think I kind of wanted it to happen in a weird way, because then it just kind of highlighted that fact that if everything is so badly performing, then you now have a reason to do it for fun. Does that sound weird? Okay, let's put it this way. If everything was badly performing except for the one video that was optimized to get views, then that makes you feel worse because now you know you need to optimize to get views because that worked. But if everything performs badly, then it doesn't matter, and then you can have fun with things again. A weird revelation. Weirdly as well, it reminds me of my balance issues. Everything comes back to this in some way. I have a lot of trouble figuring out which canal I have my crystals floating around in, and if your responses aren't very consistent, one thing you can be sure of is that you're heading in the right direction when you can trigger the most amount of dizziness, because then you're hitting the affected canal. So in a weird way, and I'm hitting the right direction with YouTube when I'm hitting the most amount of friction with it, because it means you're getting closer to a revelation. Also, just as a side note, for like other YouTubers, especially in the Blender space, that want to get into product dev or are doing product dev and are worried that if they take a step back from YouTube, that their products aren't going to sell as well. We have conveniently forgotten that people can be found and reached in just thousands of different ways online. The different social platforms, especially places like TikTok and Instagram Reels and stuff like that now, should never be underestimated. YouTube definitely has its place in the future for getting people to see your products, but it is not the be all and end all. It is not something you should slave away and compromise so much for. It is woefully unreliable in that regard. And like I said, YouTube alone and YouTube ad revenue is not a guaranteeing factor for stability, especially when compared to doing things for yourself. Now, I could talk about this for hours, but I'll probably close it up here. If you made it to the end of this video, then put some kind of emoji in the comments. Obviously, we do the unicorn emoji quite a lot. I think that should be our emoji from now on. If I don't give you an emoji, just put the unicorn emoji. Thank you for listening and watching. I hope you're doing well, and hopefully I'll see you next time.